Well, a year ago, he visited us in this very same studio, and it's one of the most popular interviews we've ever done with viewers of InfoWars Nightly News and everybody on the radio show and out in YouTube world. With more than 30 million records sold, he is one of the biggest rock stars in history. He founded the Smashing Pumpkins, which I've been a big fan of for years, since high school, really, or I guess college. But the real reason I'm a fan is he is an amazing thinker and gets me to think. As dumb as I am, that's hard to do. Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins here in town to play in Austin, Texas to a sold-out crowd. Good to have you here, my friend.
Thank you.
Wow, we just talked for like 5 minutes before we went on tonight, and I wrote like 14, 15 different points that you said you wanted to talk about. Where do we start? I mean, Billy, you've got the floor.
Well, last time I was in Austin, you and I went out to dinner and had a conversation. And you were expressing sort of frustration with the, as you're dealing with the information that you deal with on a daily basis, you said, look, at some point the negativity of all of it gets to me. I believe in what I'm doing, but, and you weren't asking for advice, but me being me, I gave you some. And I said I thought that InfoWars would benefit from a spiritual perspective, meaning history has shown, whether it's Gandhi or Martin Luther King or Jesus, that the way to really confront evil in its various forms is to find something within ourselves that doesn't resonate to the fear that's being perpetrated and propagandized, and form a collective. I've heard you say on your show many times, if people would just form together in a common idea, there's no way this can be beaten. Which is why I think you're astute to call it an info war, because the future really is about who controls information and who decides what the information is worth. And what we see from many citizen journalists now, the second and third waves beyond what people like you started, is they're finding clips of things that don't get played on the nightly news, the stuff that you and I never saw growing up. Like even today, this morning, I watched the exchange between Feinstein and Cruz over the gun issue. That's the kind of thing you would never see. And I got to watch the entire exchange. It wasn't edited. It wasn't leaned. I didn't have an anchor on the back end going, oh, can you believe Cruz? Da, da, da. I get to make my own value judgment. So where am I going with this? Anyway, so...
Well, no, I mean, your own instinctive first look. No, that's absolutely what's happening. So now there's a wider range of information out there.
I think we could agree that intelligence is one thing, but street smarts is something that most people have. Most people, if they come from immigrant class like my family did, they had to learn how to survive. And if survival in the modern world is understanding what the difference is between what we're being told and what we're actually finding when we get our paychecks and things like that, we have to go and seek out that information to deduce it. So I think a spiritual perspective on top of it, and when I say spiritual, I don't necessarily mean a dogmatic spiritualism. I'm talking about earth age-old tenets that means something. Family means something. You talk all the time about how you've read these eugenicists and stuff talking about breaking up the family and stuff like that. Well, I've seen that in my lifetime. I've seen where television has turned very anti-family. I mean, if you didn't believe in a single conspiracy in the world, if you just watch television like I have for 40 years, you've seen a very negative bias against families. Families are basically made fun of. Men are emasculated on TV constantly. Where does that come from? Is that a cultural thing? Is there somebody predictively programming that? Is there an agenda behind that? Those are all serious questions to ask. So I think it would behoove you to open up into an additional realm in the information that you seek, which is how can we kind of look at some of this information from a more positivistic and spiritually rooted perspective so that we can confront these things and not be overwhelmed by them, but we can kind of look into our communities and unify with like-minded thinkers to kind of take this on in a way that's not basically succumbing to the same low vibration thinking, which is aggression. Like, I love it when you say, I don't believe in this being a violent thing. I don't want people to kill. I don't want guns being used. I don't want a violent revolution.
Well, the system wants that because they think that's an area they control.
Well, you definitely see where the events where people have gone off recently being propagandized, obviously, to make other agendas, illuminate other agendas that they obviously want pushed through. And those are scary things for most people. Again, how do we look at these things from a different perspective? So it's not because the thing, look, if when you confront negativity in any form, and being in public life, I mean, confronting negativity is just part of the game or part of the job, because invariably somebody's going to disagree with you if you have any perspective. You have to go to a place within that says, well, how important is this really? And I think when we're looking particularly at modern propaganda, I see a real turning point, particularly like people in my community and my family, where they're not so want to buy this propaganda anymore. Recently, we saw with the sequester where the Obama administration ran out there and made it sound like the sky was falling, and the sky didn't fall. And you see really for the first time, maybe in the 5 years or 4+ years of Obama's presidency, where people are really starting to doubt, well, maybe what he's saying isn't, I'm not just going to take it at face value, the people who believe in the things that he said at face.
And that doesn't mean you endorse the Republicans either. They love to make it like, what, you're with the Republicans? No, I get that both of these systems are contained within the overall same control mechanism. People are going off the reservation. You talked about the paradigm of propaganda and how they use fear, and people see me get angry and they think, you're trying to scare me. No, I'm saying our house is on fire. Let's put the fire out. But they're the ones that I see using the fear, trying to teach people they're powerless. If you really look at what the corrupt forces are doing, it looks like something done actually from a position of weakness.
Well, I would say it like this. Why has information in the modern age become so valuable? I'll play a show in front of, let's say, 5,000 people. Well, if all 5,000 people decide to rush the stage, there's no security that's going to stop them. Well, it's the same thing with governments. They want the populace to be kind of neutered in their thinking because they don't all want them rushing over the gates, a la the French Revolution. Now, we don't want that. Neither you or I have any faith in violence being a means to an end. So why do people want to control this information so vociferously? Why is literally administrations out there, and not just our own, willingly lying? and what's amazing is you see citizen journalists finding out the lies and actually making cogent arguments of where the lies are coming from, and creating historical precedents, or putting their own YouTube videos together of this guy said this and then now he's saying this. And I think that's fascinating because, and I think you were astute, intuitively or otherwise, to recognize that the info war was really going to be the war, the war for hearts and minds, right? Because essentially if people believe in what's happening, well, then they're less likely to question it. And so this slow degrading of family, of community, of even with the way the new papacy is being viewed, saying, oh, it's got to be like this, and why isn't the new pope like this? Where is all that coming from? That's the way I look at it. It's sort of like somebody who's standing on the sidelines, because as somebody who's been in media for over 20 years, people are scrumming with that football for a reason. That's not an accident.
Why are we being fed a particular agenda worldwide? And why is it so destructive? You were talking about Walter Cronkite, and then there was, in Chicago growing up, 2 papers that said the same thing, and it was almost just basically accepted because there was no other venues. And I said, has it always been that way? And then repeat what you said.
I think it's always been that way. And I think what we're facing now is you have a lot of people doing an end around where they're finding their own information. So what do people do when they feel like they're losing control? Well, they up their control mechanism. If it's the media, they up the sensationalism. They distract you with somebody's boobs or somebody's latest DUI arrest or something like that. I mean, it's fascinating. My assistant back in Chicago, for whatever reason, when you put on the computer, it logs into Yahoo, and they've always got this top 10 list. Whatever the top 10 searches or whatever most traded search. And it's fascinating because you'll have this world crisis, number 2, and then, Kate Upton's nose will be number 1. You would think that the world crisis would invariably be number 1 because it concerns the most people. Why is Kate Upton's nose more important than
because the front page of Yahoo is now crowdsourced, and they've already force-fed the mindless celebrity issue or the new fat cure to the top, and now they can sit back and actually let the crowd source it, and they're now a feedback loop of what the system wanted. In fact, that's what you said eloquently earlier. Billy, was that looking at this, they've always been lying, but now they've doubled down because I think they're losing control. And the system is just men and women like us. They're not all powerful.
Let's reference your Piers Morgan interview for a second. I think it was fascinating because there was one of those, that was one of those crazy moments where the mainstream, for whatever reason, whether they thought, and I don't want to make it about Piers Morgan because I think it's a much, much bigger issue. People in that position, usually, when they decide to bring somebody that would be considered fringe, a fringe thinker, usually kowtow in that position, or consciously or unconsciously sort of diminish their message, or they're shouted down by somebody, you know, like they were going to have you against, what's his face?
Dershowitz.
The fact that you didn't kowtow is so rare because most people in that position would, oh, wow, I'm at CNN, I gotta kind of go, and I want to be back here again, and I want to, you know, basically they trade their internal integrity for the opportunity. That's basically how the record business works. Like, hey, you want to be here, you want to be on the Grammys, you want to say these things, don't go too far, which is why you rarely see in the music business or in the entertainment business true radicals, because they're attacked. And only the most talented survive the wave of attack that will come. Hence, somebody like Sean Penn can be considered a top actor, a political activist, a social activist, and still be routinely attacked for his views, whether they're right or wrong, because sort of the might is right, like his talent can trump the attack. Most people can't survive the attack. So for everybody who listens to you regularly, they know that, you know, despite your boisterous and vociferous personality, that you're a real person, right? So normally they, you know, try to put their thumb on you, and I'm not saying it was Piers Morgan. I think it's a much bigger collective group think. I don't think somebody made a call and said, let's get Alex Jones. It's sort of a group think, and then the minions do what they think they're supposed to do.
No, exactly. It's like a spirit, or almost like you watch birds, like a school of fish turning in unison.
I told you that before. I having been in those channels, I don't think people are making direct phone calls. I mean, you put people in positions who will do what a bulldog's supposed to do.
That's right. They pick the personality, knowing what they're going to do.
And if that personality blows the situation up, they can just get another personality and say, well, we didn't have anything to do with him. Remember there was I think it was a CNN journalist who said something, you know, about, you know, I don't know if it was something that was certainly under that context was could be considered racist, but the guy was gone the next day, and they said, oh, we don't, those aren't our views and stuff like that. I mean, the point is this: systems are meant to be systems are put in place to keep people in line. Well, the American system, the system that you and I grew up on, where we recited the Pledge of Allegiance every day. You know, we were drinking, I remember they used to hand us little cups, paper cups with pink liquid. Oh, what's this, a polio vaccine? I mean, no parental consent. God knows what I was drinking.
Cancer viruses, on record, SV40.
Well,
no, you're absolutely right.
Way to cheer me up there.
And so really things are actually much better today. The system is so out of control. Well, it is true, but don't worry.
No, but I think
people are waking up is the good news.
But here's the thing. You have so much information now. So let's I mean, this is a really bad analogy, but let's say this is control. This is the system that was there. Okay, well, it's expanding, attracting. People are trying to smush it back down. People that exist outside that system, either the system has to expand and try to include them in the system, which is what people would normally call the sellout, or you have to have enough oxygen on your own to exist outside that system. Ultimately, the system is predicated on the idea that they can either buy you in at some point, like you said at one point, like I think you said Fox News wanted you to do a show, or
a lot of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, those are those moments where they're trying to bring you in the system. You know, they're trying, and again, I don't think it's somebody making a phone call. You've amassed a personal power, and I know you don't like to make it about you, but I think it's a good example in this moment. I've amassed a particular power. We'd actually, if you think about it, we don't actually have that much power. You know,
the ideas have power.
Exactly. And that's the thing that's dangerous, and that's maybe where the spiritual turning point is. As long as you hammer on ideas that are important, as long as I sing songs that have to do with real things, they can replace people like us, but those ideas don't die. History has shown that.
And when a bunch of people pick them up and say, stop telling me I'm a loser, stop telling me resistance is futile,